Welcome to Through a Glass Darkly Radio on United Public Radio. And the intro music was Mark of the Doomslayer by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the Sol Foundation meeting. By now, I'm sure you've seen a bunch of unsanctioned and unauthorized pictures and things like that uh, attendees were explicitly told not to take and share on social media. Yet they took them and they shared them on social media. So since the biggest offender was Jack Sarfati, Dr. Jack Sarfati, yeah, oh well. It's out there. It's fine. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I mean, he's a legend in the field. So what can you do? So what I was finally did this time, at least during the first 3/4 of the first day, is I took much more detailed notes. So the first part of what I'm going to cover is actually pretty detailed. I caught a lot of the stuff that many people may have just glossed over in the kind of the latter half of the first day. And the second day, you're going to get a much more fugazi approach. There's not going to be a lot of data. There's going to be some secondhand gossip and stuff like that. That's kind of interesting, is probably true, but I can't verify it, right? So it should be pretty interesting. So here we go. So very beginning, right? The first event was opening remarks by Dr. Gary Nolan and Dr. Peter Scoffish. Kind of the usual stuff. The event, the purpose of the foundation is to be kind of a neutral body to explore the data and the science, not to take any particular point of view, right? To try to be as unbiased and serious and skeptical at the same time, make sure that they examine all the data. All right. So the morning session was focused on the challenge to government of UAP. And the first part I wasn't expecting to be as interesting as it was, because it was about aviation safety and UAP stuff, but there was a lot of inside data knowledge about kind of how some of these articles came out, like all the intrigue and stuff like that. So I'm going to actually go through my notes in some detail on this. So the first panel, it was let's make sure I get the right people here. So it was Ryan Graves with Leslie Kane, and we were talking about aviation safety and UAP. Graves apparently met reporters in a hotel room in 2019. The Navy wasn't at that time mitigating safety issues associated with UAP. Ryan didn't suffer any immediate repercussions when he revealed this fact, and Kane started, and then we started talking about Leslie Kane. She actually started reporting on the UAP topic all the way back in 2000. Her focus was initially mostly on commercial aviation, and she went into the story of Richard Haynes, which is a very interesting character. I had not heard of him. Shame on me. But he started this organization called NARCAP, which was focused on these issues way back in the 90s. And when he did, few people paid much attention to it. So Haynes' cases went back to all the way to the 1950s. One case was in 1981. There was a pilot who reported a UFO flying directly toward his window. He reported it as the size of a grapefruit held at arm's length. So back in the day, they would just say, like, if you're looking out your window and you put your arm out, how big was it, right? So you're talking, and that's not, obviously the UAP was much bigger than a grapefruit size, but that's That's the way they kind of backward engineered what the size was and things like that. And this is interesting too. In that report, he said he observed a quote unquote bending of the atmosphere, end quote. So it's kind of could be, and this is just me speculating, could be it's coming out of a wormhole from somewhere else. It could be that it's bending space time. And there was like a change in the color of the blue behind it. So it had elements of like a gravitational redshift sort of phenomena. Again, just me injecting my own personal thoughts. Now, I think Leslie asked Ryan if these cases are still happening today. He said yes. And then he related the event of a 737 aircraft that spotted a small black triangle over South Africa near Johannesburg. The craft came within 500 feet of a fully loaded passenger airliner, which is not great. So that's something a little bit more recent. Ryan Graves started his own organization called Americans for Safe Aerospace. So he currently accepts reports from both military pilots and commercial pilots. So he gave another case is that military aircraft, they're still seeing orbs in training areas. One report saw a craft during a dogfight in training. So, two naval aircraft, or I don't know if it was Navy or Air Force, but they were engaging in training, doing dogfights, and a craft showed up during the training. So his organization has advised on some air safety legislation that hasn't quite passed before. And the real problem with these incidents is not that the UAPs are going to hit the aircraft. It's the issue of accidents happening due to human error in response to the UAP, not the risk of the UAP colliding with the aircraft themselves. So, and apparently this is still in the FAA manual. So, according to Leslie Kane, the FAA manual actually tells pilots and told pilots back then to report UFO sightings to NUFORC, or quote unquote local law enforcement. If you're flying 20,000 feet over the earth, who the hell is your local law enforcement? Right? That just didn't make any sense. So what was effectively happening is the FAA was foisting these reports off to people who really weren't tied to the government, or if they were tied to the government, there was no way to tie which jurisdiction was particularly relevant for the aircraft as it's flying over the Earth's surface. So, according to Kane, Haynes' study had 100 cases, and no one in officialdom would listen to him. So, here's another interesting data point. There's lots of interesting data points that they threw out. So, Ryan Graves threw this one out. There are over 90,000 rocket launches planned by 2030. So space debris is going to be a big problem, and the UAP issue only compounds this problem for obvious reasons, right? So what the industry is doing, they're currently working on leveraging AI to use high-speed camera in space to detect these objects. And then obviously these safety cases are grossly underreported, but since Ryan Graves testified before Congress, reports have increased as the stigma has slowly been loosening for pilots. Leslie Kane talked a little bit about the 2006 O'Hara case where there was a craft that appeared over O'Hara Airport. It was hovering, I believe it was gate C-17 or C-16. My notes aren't entirely clear on it, or I did catch it when I was there for over 5 minutes. It flew up and left a hole in the cloud when it did that. And there were 13 witnesses in the case, but no one would go on record. And the case, if I haven't already mentioned, happened in 2016. Or sorry, 2006. Okay. All right. So then we moved on to the next topic. There's a panel where people could ask questions, or actually this is after this. So the next portion was a proposal for a whole of government UAP policy. And this was done by Rear Admiral retired Dr. Tim Gallaudet. And he also had some interesting cases that he talked through. So in one case, there was a P-3 Orion aircraft, which is a sub hunter, a Los Angeles class submarine, which is an attack sub, and a Navy LFA craft. So that's Lima Foxtrot Alpha, for those who couldn't catch what I was talking about. In 1990 and 1991, there were, I think, several incidents. There were two, I think, that he discussed. They discovered a large object, roughly the size of a submarine. They pinged it with an object beneath them with, this is off the coast of Japan. They pinged an object with active sonar and got a solid ping, which meant that there was a physical something there. But strangely, it did not register on passive sonar. Now, at a high level, the way passive sonar works is instead of pinging an object, it's just monitoring for, I think, ambient sound, noise, and things like that. So the fact that it did not register on passive sonar implied that it was, whatever it was completely silent. And then kind of fast forwarding, he also talked a little about, I think at the last Sol Foundation event, he had talked about this anomaly off SoCal that appeared on Google Maps. And then Google, being who Google is, subsequently removed it, but it remained on NOAA's site, so the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's website. So Gallaudet came back and said that he went and spoke to a bunch of geologists, and he claimed that there was a natural explanation for the SoCal anomaly. He touched on it very briefly. There wasn't enough data to really suggest. I'm not convinced either way. Again, anybody who has at that level is very closely tied to the government, and if someone in the government says, "Hey, just put this cover story out. There's a darker reason for this, or there's something here that we don't want people talking about. Just here's a geologist that we commissioned. Here's a report that you can just reference this report. You don't have to lie, but just reference it." So honestly, I don't know whether or not to believe him. But I'm not going to take a strong stance either way. I just think we all should remain skeptical until I've seen that report or others. I'm not going to make an assertion either way. In terms of current U.S. UAP policy, he referred to it as, quote, "a dog's breakfast," end quote, which means it's just all over the place. Okay, so the DOE, the Department of Energy, is definitely doing some work. The National Science Foundation had a funded program, but none of this stuff seems to be coordinated. Arrow apparently spoke, or Representative Arrow spoke to Gallaudet at a classified level, and then I think he will meet with the new head of Arrow soon. He took a little bit of a timeout not timeout, but he also directly addressed some of Sean Kirkpatrick's comments about him and his personal character. And he basically said they were absurd. Who would have said this? He'd have people who support him, this and that. And then he just asked the question, what incentive does Kirkpatrick have in doing this? Obviously to discredit him and to make the program look like it's crazy, like people are crazy who are supporting it. In terms of where Congress is, it's fragmented. They're kind of moving in various directions, but it's kind of unclear necessarily where it's going to go. He asked, why is policy important? Because it advances the nation's interests, obviously. And he also kind of went through some of Trump's picks. He wasn't endorsing Trump. He wasn't taking any political stance. I think that's important to say. But he did say that Trump's picks on CIA, state, and one other department, which I didn't pick up on in time, are positive because they have been supportive of UAP disclosure in the past. And that other department was definitely not the Secretary of Defense. I would have been shocked, by the way, if he had said anything positive there. But I'm trying to think of some of the names, but they're just not they're not coming to me right now. But basically, those picks have been very supportive of UAP policy in the past. Oh, so state, that's Rubio. CIA, I'm still can't remember off the top of my head. All right. He considers controlled disclosure a good policy. Returning back to the SoCal thing, the name of the specific feature in SoCal is called Sycamore Knoll. It's a geographical feature, not a UFO base. Also, this is interesting. Kevin Day reported to him that in the UFO Princeton event, the USS Princeton, UAPs headed toward Catalina Island after the incident and then disappeared. So for whatever that's worth. And then I think Gallaudet, not necessarily concluded, but the last thing I have recorded here is part of this phenomena is nuts and bolts, but another part is psychological, paranormal, and or spiritual. So take from that what you will. Okay. Then there was kind of a panel, questions were asked, and then we got into the politics of executive branch UAP secrecy with Dr. Eric Davis and Kirk McConnell. So that was definitely interesting. And it was more of like a fireside chat sort of format. So Dr. Eric Davis, his reputation precedes him. Most people who follow this topic know who he is. I'll run through his background anyway when I get to it. McConnell, this is kind of the first time he's spoken openly about some of this stuff. But he retired from government service in February. He has 37 years of government service. He's been on various Senate and congressional intelligence staff. And his last 17 years were on the SASC. It's probably the Select something Senate committee, or so I don't know. It's some Senate committee, I believe. And he just kept saying SASC, so I'm assuming it's SASC. He interacted with Reid's OSAP program, Senator Reid. He was aware of some of Putoff's work on zero-point energy. He interviewed Navy pilots, and little by little, he kept pulling at the thread that UAPs were real, et cetera, and he became convinced that it was real, and he is still not totally at peace with this, which is kind of an interesting comment. All right, Dr. Eric Davis, he worked in South Korea, then found a job at NIDS as a physicist. Bigelow hired him there. He worked there for 6 years. He did forensic physics for 5 years at Skinwalker in the Uinta Basin and other locations in the Southwest. He worked in Air Force roles at it's called AFRO, but it's AFRO. Then worked in Austin for Hal Puthoff for 15 years. He worked at the NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center on space nuclear fission tech, and he's now working as a part-time consultant, looking for a new job. So if anybody wants to hire Eric Davis, you're free to reach out to him. All right, so the topic of Eric Davis apparently briefed congressional staff, and the topic of that briefing was on recovery of craft designed by non-human intelligences. So there were firsthand and secondhand accounts of recovery operations that were highly convincing to congressional staff, and these people told their stories to senators. There was also so much documentary evidence that it was absolutely impossible to ignore it. So McConnell prefers the theory that the government knows a lot about this stuff and chooses to keep it secret. Davis also spoke to White House officials, program managers, private company CEOs, and he also said it was impossible to ignore. He said there is a there. And then going back to McDonnell, he associated that the executive branch has plenary authority over classified information. So the term plenary, if you look it up, plenary, it means absolute, unfettered. The executive branch doesn't have to, as long as it's classified, if it's deemed classified, executive branch doesn't have to share a damn thing with Congress legally. Doesn't have to share it. So there is a constitutional argument that the president can legally do this. Maybe it's not one to one, but I think in past interviews that I've seen with Jim Semivan, he said similarly, like this thing is legally totally legitimate. So there are also things Davis referred to that are called PEDS. It's spelled Papa Echo Alpha Delta, PEAD, and they stand for Presidential Emergency Action Documents. According to him, they have never been leaked. Never. And many of these PEDs, right? Well, at least the contracts that they have with recovered materials, most of those contracts are sole source contracts and are somehow related to these PEDs or presidential emergency action documents. There's another interesting question. He just kind of, I don't know if somebody asked him or if he just volunteered it. Do presidents know? And his answer to that was, quote unquote, trustworthy presidents are informed at some level. Others are not. So Nixon, Reagan, Kennedy, Eisenhower, and Bush Jr. were briefed. Bill Clinton was not briefed. Jimmy Carter also received a briefing. Stratton did brief Trump on the UAP problem, but not on the crash retrieval program. And then now I can move on with this. I don't think this is relevant. Davis said quite stridently, though I don't know if he's actually in a position to know this, that there are no such thing as alien recovery vehicles, ARVs. He said that they're making progress on materials, but not on energy and propulsion. Very exotic tech, so exotic it cannot be made by human hands. Okay, so that's kind of lots of nuggets from that session, but I'll just kind of continue. The next session that we covered was Japan's role in creating international cooperation on the UAP issue, and then I want to make sure that I pronounce this name properly. It's Yoshiharu Asakawa. He was former General Secretary of the UAP caucus in the Parliament of Japan. So, he had a few words about cooperation and how America is the United States and its openness are also helping him to foster openness in Japan. One kind of interesting nugget that he mentioned, I mean, everybody kind of already knows this, but he explicitly said that, yes, UAPs did appear over the Fukushima disaster or while it was happening. All right, so I'm going to take a pause right there. That was the morning session. I didn't take great notes after that, but I still will have my memory jogged as I go through the program. But I'm going to take a break right there, and then I have not been looking at comments, so I'm going to start looking at comments right now. Okay, let's see. Where are we? Okay, I'm just reading through. Just gonna. I'm gonna post some of these. Hey Andy, how you doing? Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. The space debris problem is a big problem. We'll see. Oh boy. Yeah, Kirkpatrick's not. I mean, he has a job. He has a job to perform, which is it's a counterintelligence role, in my opinion. So he's just doing his job. Yeah, this so lots of UAP reported over U.S. bases in UK during the last few days. BBC and the Evening Post seem to. Yeah, I have a I have a hypothesis on that one. I think so. If you're following the massive incompetence of the current administration in their decision to allow Ukraine to use U.S. deep strike weapons against the Russians so that they can attack deep in U.S. territory. Putin obviously needed to react after the Ukrainians fired something over the border. So, for the first time in history, uh, a nuclear power has fired ICBMs in anger against a another combatant. So, obviously they weren't nuclear tipped, but there would be, you know, I'm not sure if we can detect those things from launch, whether or not they have a nuclear payload, but I would suspect that we might. But it's still a pretty extremely concerning escalation because Russian ICBMs work. They can deliver within some measurable, radius, aiming point, aiming radius, whatever it's called, and hit accurately. That's it's good to know. It's good to know. Now, can ours? I don't know. We haven't used ICBMs in actual combat conditions like the Russians have, so I don't know. I hope so, but they've credibly established that theirs can. So anyway, what I think happened as part of that escalation is that the U.S. very likely forward deployed some nuclear weapons and probably forward deployed them in those particular bases, if I had to guess. And the tell on that is the fact that UAPs are appearing. Now, is there a chance that those UAPs are just Russian drones? I haven't looked into the reports. So, without having looked into the reports, yes, as long as the flight characteristics are not extremely fast velocity and all that stuff. If they're just hovering and they're, behaving, not doing extreme shifts and changes in the sky, then yes, it could be. But my guess is that those are actual UAPs. If they are actual UAPs, we probably moved nukes into position or forward deployed them, or short range nuclear weapons, or actually probably tactical nuclear weapons, if I had to guess. But I don't know. So it's getting stupid out there. We have a bunch of clowns who are in charge right now, just absolute circus clowns. Let's see. You're still wondering what Tim Burchett has been smoking when he went on national TV and said ET has technology to turn us all into charcoal briquettes. Yeah, I mean, they do. They probably do, right? They just have like microwave technology, things like that. Yeah, also Langley got buzzed or was getting buzzed repeatedly and probably still is getting buzzed. The last time I heard it was in December 2023. So has it been since? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I met some interesting people at this conference who parents, family were associated with some or like some subset of those names. Yes, Ratcliffe was definitely the nominee for CIA. I just couldn't remember his name. That's correct. Yeah, but he wasn't. I'm. He didn't mention Tulsi Gabbard's name. He definitely didn't mention Tulsi Gabbard as one of the people that he thought was good. He didn't say she was bad, but yeah, she is cool, but she knows Stugatz about intelligence, which is a little scary. Yet, that's actually a great point, Soullight. There was explicitly no mention of Bush Senior either way. I would be surprised if he did not know, given that he was the head of the CIA during the Carter administration, and Carter got a briefing during that time. I don't know if Bush was still running the CIA because Carter, I think, fired him, but I would be shocked if he didn't know. Maybe, but not all of them. There's actually a Danny Jones podcast where he interviews a documentary filmmaker, in the Rua case, and he said he stopped at a South African Air Force facility, and they let him on, and he's like, "Do you guys see any of this stuff?" And he's just like, "Yeah, we can see this stuff on radar. In fact, we can tell by the radar signature alone if it's American, Russian, or them, whoever they are." So, oh God, yeah, that's a little scary. That's bad optic. Yeah, but I think they fixed that Fitbit's Apple Watch problem during the middle, like during the leak that you could see them in like Uzbekistan and stuff like that. So yeah, I didn't even watch that hearing. Anything Arrow, it's just a counterintelligence operation. Don't waste your time. I mean, 100%, 100%, it's that. There's like, I don't want to say zero doubt, but it's a counterintelligence op. They're just trying to. They're just a big catcher's mitt, big Venus flytrap, just sucking in all the people who are disclosing. But Susan Golf, yeah, she was, the golf cough, they called it, right? When she's just closely monitoring to make sure that the new Arrowhead didn't misstep. But she's psyops. She was a army colonel, so and she was focused on psyops. So that's basically what she's doing. Uh, I mean, there were a lot of Men in Black types, right? Not wearing hats and stuff like that, but like bald, like super rail thin, just kind of wandering about. You know, they could have been normal people. I don't know, but they seem like security types to me, one way or the other. Oh, Ted Postal. Yeah, I know who this Ted Postal is. So you watched two interviews with Ted Postal from MIT on his take regarding the new Russian missile, where he talked about this type of missile. Yeah, I took a course from him once. It was like a weekend course at Stanford Medical School on like the effects of like nuclear war or something like that. It was really, 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 really weird and disturbing in an interesting way, but it was still disturbing. Oh yeah, we were definitely swimming in that. That's in kind of an intelligence target, target rich environment. So yeah, okay, all right. I'm going to get back to going through some of this stuff. So please bear with me. All right, so the afternoon session it's called Understanding the Enigma, the Role of Philosophical Investigation. So the first step was the relational and communicative problem of UAP, and this was Dr. Peter Scoffish in conversation with Leslie Kane. Just some of the anthropomorphic reactions and things like that related to disclosure and the phenomena and things like that. Uh, the other thing that is kind of interesting was UAP and human security, and human is in quotes. was the next topic, and that was Dr. Alexander Wendt, W-E-N-T, or sorry, W-E-N-D-T. Actually, very interesting. So this was from the perspective of international relations, right? And realpolitik and what would be the impact of this. And it was a pretty reductive analysis, right? It's just like, what's the role of government? The role of government is to protect the governed. And as long as the government protects the governed, they have the consent of the governed. The issue with UAPs, if the government cannot protect people from this outside power, then by disclosing this fact, you risk the collapse of human civilizations and law and order. That's part one. The other some other constraints like boundary conditions that he added to his analysis were that we had not made contact with any extraterrestrial species yet. And there may have been some other ones, but that one's important for reasons that will abundantly become clear very shortly. So, and now this is me editorializing now. I personally believe, so anyway, while he's in favor of disclosure, he was a little bit more conservative after having done the analysis, because of if there's a 1% risk that civilization collapses, why would you do it? So I think his analysis has a fundamental flaw in it, and that is that the government has the consent of the governed. I think after COVID, I think they lost that. I think the only reason people still pay taxes and kind of go about their daily lives is for two reasons, and two reasons only. One, habit, and kind of socialization / habit. And two, because if they don't pay their taxes, someone will show up at their house and point a gun at them and make sure that they do. They just do it because of coercion. Right now, I don't think our government has the consent of the governed. Even with the results of the last election, I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to need to be done to restore faith and faith in American institutions, because I think the people running our foreign policy, for instance, and not to brag, but I was trained by Dr. Ash Carter, who became Obama's Secretary of Defense. So I'm not an idiot, but I look at the decisions that these people are making, and it's a clown show. Like, he would be rolling in his grave right now. Just the stupidity and recklessness of these policies are just make no sense to me. So right now we're being run by a bunch of elites who are like literally in clown cars driving around and flirting with nuclear war, because most of them have not served, right? The people who, if you look at the current administration who are in charge, have no military background, so they have no conception whatsoever of what they're asking America's sons and daughters to do. None whatsoever. So it's tails they win, heads you lose. So anyway, in my opinion, his analysis completely collapses in and of itself. In fact, I think that disclosure, they've already lost consent of the governed. We're just sleepwalking and just doing what we always did. So you might as well disclose. Maybe by changing the paradigm with people, maybe you'll get their focus away from how much they hate their government to the possibilities that might be inherent with this secret. Now, the other piece that I alluded to about no contact, I'm not going to say any names, okay, because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. And this also came to me secondhand, from someone who was in the room, who heard this, particular individual who is in a position to know these things, effectively said that this analysis failed, not because of the reason I told you, but because there had already been contact. I'm just going to let that sit there for a little bit. There had already been contact. And the way that, and again, I'm reading into this, it's not like Lou Elizondo's version of contact where they communicated with us by interacting with our flights and things like that. The implication was that there was something official. So the risk now is a little bit of a different one, in my opinion. And that is if there is a class of people who have known that we've had some sort of agreement or treaty with a non human intelligence or several non human intelligences, wherever they may be from, and has kept this secret for any amount of time, the longer, the worse it'll be. And they made a decision not to share something that is fundamentally true about our reality. Those people have every incentive to keep this quiet because history and the American people are not going to be very forgiving to these individuals at all. And they know this. So they have an incentive to keep this thing quiet. You almost need to have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. At least that's what more forgiving people would have. I'm not one of those people. If this is true, these people need to be held accountable. I'm not going to go into any detail because I don't want to get myself into trouble. But we've been sending people off to wars. If this is something we've known about, people have been fighting and dying pointlessly for a very long time. And their deaths are on these people's heads. Because we could have been focusing our time, our material, and everything that we've been doing as a society elsewhere, not on killing each other. And that people aren't going to let that one rest, and they shouldn't let that one rest. So anyway, I don't want to. If I said the name, you would recognize it, and I'll just leave it at that. And I had to speculate a little bit, right? I could have speculated in the wrong direction, so just take that with a grain of salt, okay? So that's what people in intelligence call rumint, right? Rumor intelligence. So take it for what it's worth. It's rumors, secondhand, but in terms of timing, within minutes or hours of when the statement was made. So anyway, that was an interesting discussion. Okay, there was another section on introducing the archives of the impossible with Jeffrey Kripal and Karen Austin, right? So that's at Rice University where there's a lot of artifacts and things like that. I think John Mack's, Karen Austin's associated with John Mack's materials and things like that. So it's a good thing that they set up. There was another Q&A. Then there was, a little bit about religion and UAP. Again, I don't have a ton of. Actually, no, I take that back. There was supposed to be discussion on religion and UAP, but it ended up being a change where we had Mitch Randall come up, who's a passive radar specialist, which for those in the know, it's actually a very highly classified U.S. military technology. It's up there with nuclear weapons shielding. So I don't know why he was able to speak about it, but they're trying to do more of a decentralized collection using software-defined radio networks and things like that. Or I'm probably getting the terminology wrong, but this is just using FM waves to just the way that they bounce off objects. Each like different. You could crowdsource intelligence by having individuals with like a receiver in their homes that could help detect and range find where these UAPs are to the point, and then coupling that with individual sensors like this. So imagine a world where you have a little detection unit in your house. It gives you a 30-second warning that something's going to fly over, and you can have your camera ready to capture it as it zips by. So, an interesting kind of crowdsourced technological solution to all that. Okay. All right. And then later that night at 8 p.m., we had a special evening event, which turned out to be a preview of the program, which is an excellent documentary for somebody in your family who doesn't know anything about UAPs. It is a very comprehensive primer so that people can kind of get the gist of everything in a very short amount of time. So there's some new stuff. So Jason Sands appears on that. The program comes out on December 16th. Consequently, my interviews of Jason Sands are going to appear. The first one's going to appear on the 16th, and the second one's going to appear on the 18th. It turns out that my interview goes into what they talked a little bit about on the program, and then goes into a little bit more depth. So it will be a good compliment. First, watch the program, and then watch the first interview, which will cover a lot of that good stuff. So, all right. So anyway, that's the first day. The second day, we got into opening remarks. Again, Dr. Gary Nolan and Peter Scoffish. And then we went and spent time on more science, right? So toured a science of UAP, that sort of material. And we talked a little bit about standards of evidence in UAP. So the difference between standards of evidence, and that was with Dr. Gary Nolan in conversation with Matthew Pine. So that was interesting. It was kind of the difference between the various standards of military intelligence, geopolitical intelligence versus the sciences, things like that. I have opinions on it, but I'm not gonna exercise that right now. Let's just not go there. Dr. Avi Loeb came on to discuss new results from the Galileo Project Observatory and the Pacific Ocean expedition. If you watch my interview on Dr. Gary or on Dr. Avi Loeb, a lot of stuff that was repeated from that. But they're continuing to analyze the materials. He's debunking, a bunch of the stuff that was thrown at him, and obviously, the news media was didn't do their homework, got a bunch of stuff wrong, stuff that was easily kind of put down. There was some work on Civilian Astronomer's Guide to UAP Research by Dr. Beatrice Villarreal. For those who watch this channel, there was some work on I think why can't I remember the name of it was like Project Moonbeam or Project Moonshot, or I can't remember or Operation Moon something. I can't remember, but Geldrich actually contributed. Richard Geldrich contributed a bit to that presentation, particularly in that operation. Was not credited. Just putting that out there. And then there was a panel discussion again with Dr. Loeb, and then I think Villarreal also discussed transients. Same sort of stuff I think she has in the past. There were some more nuances, but I obviously didn't pick it up. There was an intriguing discussion. It was called "What is Reality?" that I think just turned out to be kind of a steelman argument by Dr. James Beecham. He's at CERN, but he did directly address many of the CERN conspiracy theories, right? That that they were engaged in witchcraft, and they kind of just showed as their evidence this statue on CERN's campus, and it was just like an Indian, like a South Asian kind of Indian symbol or whatever. So he kind of debunked a lot of that stuff. There were a bunch of other things. Uh, that they opened a portal to another dimension they opened a portal to hell via Event Horizon, kind of stuff like that. Obviously, he said that they did not open a portal to hell. And then he also talked to, and I wasn't sure if he was steel manning or if he actually believed this, but he said that like remote viewing and psychic ability, all that stuff had never been proven in the lab and this and that. And it's just like, I don't know if he's just saying that to steelman something or if he's that ignorant. But, there's been plenty of studies at Pear Labs at Princeton and Duke University, UCLA. Dr. Dean Radin's done a ton of work. The U.S. military and CIA used it for 20 some odd years to great effect. So I think he was steelmanning it a little bit, but I'm not sure. There was a tweet going around where Dr. Sarfati was there. I got to meet Dr. Sarfati. He was great. I shook his hand, and he recognized me. He's like, oh yeah. He was really cool with me. He was pretty merciless though on some of the questions he asked. But anyway, he called this guy a schmuck in a one of his tweets, and then at the very end he was talking about some physics thing, and he kind of retracted. He's like, okay, he's not so much a schmuck, right? Or he may not be a schmuck or something like that. So classic Sarfati. But anyway, it's fun to watch in real time. So that was that. Then we got into the afternoon session, and we talked a little bit about widening the information energy spectrum, perspectives on UAP technology development. But unfortunately, I had some moron at some other organization related to my work that said we hadn't paid them. And so I had to deal with the email to, let my team know. And of course, my team had paid them like 3 days earlier. So some schmuck didn't check internally with their internal payments department and created a crisis over a weekend that really was not a crisis. So I missed that one entirely because I was dealing with a crisis that shouldn't have been a crisis. The next one was the potential for investment in UAP related ventures, opportunities, models, and challenges. And that was Rizwan Virk. So I think there's an American Alchemy, like Jesse Mitchell video with Rizwan that actually just came out. But he talks about the landscape in Silicon Valley, how Series A, B, C, like all that. It really wasn't anything new to me, but probably a lot new for the audience. But I think the conclusion is basically the way that the current ecosystem works. There's not like one really clean area where our system's not really set up for like investments that will take 10 to 20 years to yield a return, right? Private equity might get you, like VC is, very early stage to like 5 years. VC might be 3 to 7 years at best. But there's not a lot of, you have to do some combination of all the above, where you have like prizes to encourage people to engage in innovation. You have proof of concept sort of investments that depend, like each stage dependent on the prior stage. There's actually, he didn't really mention this, but it's a lot like biotech in some sense, where each stage of your investment, or at each stage it's a kind of binary, because you have you have to get through the hurdle of FDA approval. So you invest a ton of money, and it could be worth zero if FDA just decides, no, we don't know. So there's a lot of that. There's also questions of how the government would see this technology to individual companies. Turns out there's actually a precedent for that, but most of it is in these PEDs, basically, where there's sole source contractors that they pick. So you'd have to come up with something related to that. But anyway, it was an interesting and I think much needed discussion in terms of figuring out how to finance these technologies and things like that. But I still didn't get the sense. I would like to hear if there's like a whole portfolio of these things, if there were ever a process where there's a transfer process that the government can transfer this to private industries, people can bid or uh, have an orderly transfer of these in a fair and market competitive way. I didn't feel like we really got that discussion, but I'm glad we got a discussion at all about the economics of the situation. Uh, then there was Joseph Berta was discussing beyond speculation, setting the record straight on UAP disclosure with AI. That was interesting. He just talked about the intricacies of um, how a lot of like some AI systems are too vectorized, right? So it's hard to establish connections between different sets of unstructured data. So they're working on a big AI project in order to be able to ask certain questions. So, as an example, he said in this particular UFO case, the Air Force used the Venus excuse to debunk it. How many other UFO cases and where were they did the Air Force use a similar excuse? Like stuff like that was pretty useful. There's still other problems like finding and correlating individuals. If somebody talks about Hal Puthoff versus Harold Puthoff, which obviously is the same person, right? AI doesn't really make that connection very well just yet in certain applications. So that was kind of the gist of that particular uh, piece. And then at the very end was Carl Nell and Gary Nolan, and they talked about the UAP NHI Hilbert problems. So defining a way forward, Carl Nell in conversation with Gary Nolan. So Hilbert was a German mathematician, and I think in 1890 or so, he came, he came up with a list of 10 intractable mathematical problems that had been unsolved at that point as sort of a challenge. And then subsequently, some of these problems were refined and kind of defined as either they were ill defined or weren't defined properly and had to be redefined in a certain way, or some of them were solved. And then I think they were also expanded to something like 23 sort of problems. And this is kind of the way that he wanted to structure the different different disciplines for this controlled disclosure, because I think we've established that the government from Tim Gallaudet's briefing that it's really not in the best position. It may have most of the data, but it's not in the best position to do this. It has to kind of cede a lot of that control to academia, to industry. So he went through, and you'll see if you look at Sarfati's tweets. Sarfati has all the slides, right? I'm not gonna. I've been told. Look, I've been told not to use this stuff on social media or post it, so I'm not. But if you need to find it, just go to Sarfati's Twitter account, and you'll get all the slides, at least the slides that are relevant for this particular discussion. So I'm not gonna go too much into that right now, but it's the usual suspects, right? So like the humanities, so anthropology, economics, finance, the sciences or the natural sciences, physics, biology, all the usual stuff. So that's all I got. I think that's the entirety of the. Obviously, there was other stuff in the background, and I got to meet a lot of interesting people. I'm hoping to interview a gentleman who was at the Brandenburg kind of Red Square UFO incident. He was in kind of Air Force security at the time when it happened. So, hopefully I hear from him. I mean, I have his email. We connected. Uh, Also, I was able to connect with Danny Sheehan's social media guy. So, at some point in the near future, I should have an interview with him. So hopefully that gets lined up soon. And yeah, lots of interesting stuff. So, all right, I'm going to start going through individual. I'm getting a lot of views tonight, but it's probably because this is the first live stream that talked about the soul. And I hope I did it justice. So if you're just joining me and you've never been on watched this show before, welcome. I cover everything about the phenomenon. I will cover stuff that people who are really into it don't like. Right? I've interviewed Mick West. I've interviewed Thomas Monteleone, who hoaxed John Keel. To all the original remote viewers, or most of the original remote viewers from the Stargate program. So I try to talk to everybody because I think anybody that wants to have a 360 view of what's really going on needs to talk to people they don't agree with and hear what their perspective is and give them a fair shake, because they might know something or a piece of the puzzle that you don't know. But I've also talked to people who are demonologists, people on the religious side, who are trying to tie the phenomena or reconcile the phenomena with older beliefs, things like that. So if you're here for the first time, welcome, and I hope you got some of the information you need. And everything I said is probably not 100% correct, and if people who were there and I misstated something or got something wrong, please feel free in the comments to tell me what I did, and I'll try to do better next time. Right? I just want to make sure I get as much information out to folks as I can, as fast as I can. So I appreciate you here, and hope you're able to find other episodes of my channel that you can enjoy. All right, now I'm going to start going through. Oh, by the way, the other thing I didn't mention is Jonathan Berta. There was some June Crane stuff in there, and that was also Rich Geldrich had his fingerprints on that, and he was publicly acknowledged for helping in that presentation. So thank you, Jonathan, for doing that. We appreciate that, giving people credit where credit's due. Okay, so let's see. I have to find where I left off. I'm like way behind. Let's see. Oh man, I am so far out. All right, yeah. Okay, I think I found where we are. Yes. Yeah, she was, the golf cough. We talked about that. Let's see. I mean, the people that had that vibe, I don't know if they were real men in black, but yeah, there were definitely people who had that vibe. Okay, we got Ted Postal. Okay, so that. Okay, here's where we go. Arizona saw a big mushroom cloud. I don't know what would be in Arizona, though, that would be a target. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But we'll see. Okay. Deep State. Jake Sullivan, probably. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I can see that happening. Yeah, we that might be an escalation. There might not be anything on those ICBMs, right? But it might just be an escalation to show that although launching them from U.S. soil and hitting something in Russian soil is probably tantamount to war. So I don't know. I don't know how they get away with that. Yeah, Courtney Brown is Farsight Institute. It's correct. No, no mention of Antarctica to my knowledge. Okay, I'm not going to read this. So, Chile, role of government is to be parasites, vampires, predators, insider traders, bilers, embezzlers, Ponzi schemers. Cover. Uh, well, I didn't say it. Yeah, some of these comments I can't pull. I'm not gonna roll the dice on some of these. Oh yeah, we can't. Yeah, I can't. We can't talk about that. No pandemic stuff. I'll get censored. Let's see. What is this? Yeah, I don't know if they're all telepathic, but yeah, there's like the telepathy tapes or something like that. I forget what it's called. It's like a YouTube channel. Let's see. Let's see. So Arizona saw a very large missile coming out of the ground. He said doors open. Now came a large missile. What it could be is an ICBM. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think it would be nuclear tip. That would be stupid. Let's see. Yeah, it could be more than one race. I don't know. The other thing that was mentioned, and again, I'm not going to ascribe a source because I don't want I want to be invited back. But these things are interdimensional, whatever that means. Whatever that means. Okay. All right. See you later, Pat. Thanks for watching. Sorry, I'm just trying to read through everything. Huh. Interesting. Okay, September 1979 hangar. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I heard an interesting theory. I mean, it's just somebody's random theory, but I'll put it out there. I don't endorse it. I don't know what to think, but I thought it was intriguing. Given if you take like a typical descriptions of grays, right? They look like humans that if humans had been underground for 10,000 years. Actually, longer than that. But if humans had been underground, they would develop large eyes. They would kind of lose pigmentation. And that's kind of how they would look. So the theory was that during one of these mass extinction events, some early species of advanced humans went underground, probably the elites of whatever human civilization. So you could say Atlanteans, you could say whatever. I'm not saying Atlanteans, I'm just using that as a for instance. And if an advanced civilization went underground, presumably they would be much farther along on gene splicing, CRISPR like technology, that they could rapidly evolve into something better suited to living underground. So as little as 10,000 years ago, maybe some of these um, early humans went under, or advanced humans went underground um, through speciation, accentuated speciation with, by artificial means, became something like rays, and then, continued to manipulate the human civilization on the surface. It very well could be something like that. I'm not saying it is, but I thought that was a pretty intriguing theory because if you say they're advanced humans and they went underground, 10,000 years isn't going to be long enough for them to evolve into something that would look like the Greys, I don't think. But if they were advanced, right, they would, many of them might alter their DNA so that they could survive better in dark conditions underground, etc. So, interesting theory. Let's see. There's more of the mushroom cloud. Huh, yeah, we will find out soon enough. So a mushroom that Arizona saw regarding the far side video with and the mushroom cloud that Arizona saw regarding the far side video with U.S. domestic military engagement. The mushroom cloud he saw was December. Yeah, I mean there is one target in Arizona that would be a good target for the Chinese, for instance, and that could be that fab that TSMC is building in order to decouple it from all the fabs in Taiwan. But that's just speculation on my part. Let's see. Yeah, okay. I must have a lot more comments I gotta get through. Truth and reconciliation will be absolutely required when, if the truth comes out. It's unavoidable. Justice will need to be made more. No, but with the truth and reconciliation, there wasn't, like, you had a bunch of murders in the South African police state that were, just so that they would come out and talk, were basically pardoned. I don't want reconciliation. I just want truth. I want truth and justice. I want a truth and justice um, commission. Okay. What do you think of Putin saying USA doesn't have the military capacity to stop their Orshink missile? He's right. We don't. Hypersonic missiles change the nature of warfare right now. We don't, as far as I know, unless we have some sort of 0-day capability that we're just holding back on. But I don't think we can stop it. Yeah, exactly. No one has technology to shoot down warheads traveling at Mach 10. Yeah. Yeah, Ted Postal's an interesting guy. Let's see. I don't even know what that is. Okay, so what's got rid of? So even other say this like got rid of Putin is warning the West, don't continue doing what they're doing, or this is going to end up in nuclear war. That's why he's public. Yeah, they're engaging in tit for tat right now, right? So we did that foolhardy thing where the Ukrainians using our technology was striking targets deep in Russia, and Russia warned, so they demonstrated the first use of ICBMs in history, at least in combat, right? Obviously, ICBMs have been used in tests and things like that, but his ICBMs work under wartime conditions. Do ours? I don't know. Let's see. Uh, okay. Feel on Jason's credibility, motive, genuineness. Well, he's real. He definitely served at Area 51 during the time frame that he claims, because I know people who do like that sort of research for military records and stuff like that, and he's legit. And he was kind of he's part of a red team that would intercept Air Force intelligence, or sorry, Air Force communications to see what they were revealing and things like that. And he heard some crazy stuff. So you'll have to watch the videos to, and he's also seen some crazy stuff. So, and his answer to that question is that Congress, like he spoke to Congress in a closed hearing or a closed meeting. I don't know if it was a hearing. And so he's the real deal. Now the question is, and this question applies to everybody. You also have to kind of be Schrodinger's skeptic. You have to be a skeptic and a believer simultaneously at the same time. So you also have to entertain the notion that this could be a gigantic intelligence and counterintelligence op designed to expose or to detect, expose, and capture people who are working on a advanced U.S. aerospace program, as well as a strategic deception campaign, convince the Russians and China that we have godlike technologies that we've acquired from advanced non-human species, right? This could be, the whole thing could be a strategic deception campaign to mess with our enemies. So, or it could be that there are real non-human intelligences operating around our planet. So I tend to believe in the latter, but you can't fully believe in it because you might be wrong, right? This could be a massive strategic deception campaign and counterintelligence campaign where these people are spy catchers. So or there could be a mixture of both, right? You always have to be skeptical about all this stuff and not get too bent around the axle about where the answer goes. You have to be flexible. Let's see. I'm not sure who his right-hand man is. Putin's the only thing keeping Russia sane right now. If we had, if our clown show collectively decides to try to assassinate him, and by the way, people who say the U.S. doesn't assassinate leaders, there are certain units in the United States, like tier 1 operators, that's one of their missions. So CIA is probably not allowed to do it anymore, but we definitely do it. We definitely still do it. So, and I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Yeah, laser, would travel at the speed of light. The problem is you need sensors to detect where these things are at an instant in time. And then you have to be able to, there's processing delays, right? In order to figure out where it's going to go next. And you're not going to always get it right. And lasers don't necessarily, it's a very high wattage laser that we would, again, I'm not a physicist, so but I think you got to keep that laser on the thing for a while. So it is not a simple problem to solve in terms of taking down hypersonic missiles. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. All right. Let's see. Do you think the government only gives pieces of tech to corporations, but not necessarily 100%? That's exactly what they do. 100%. And if you read The Day After Roswell by Lieutenant Colonel Corso, that's exactly what they did. They would just say, hey, take a look at this. We found this from the Russians. What does it do? And they would do all this analysis, and they'd be like, oh my God, like this is like, we can't even begin to describe, but it gives us an idea. And then they work on something. That happened at Bell Labs and a bunch of other places, according to Colonel Corso. Okay. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I can't post everything. So, and I also have to make sure that, I'm not posting something that says something about the pandemic. Oh boy, there's some spicy stuff in there that I can't post. Woo! Not gonna post that. God, there's a lot of comments that I am trying to get through. I can't read that fast, guys. I I don't even know what you're talking about with Black Jesus. I don't. I have no idea. I just had to put it up there because it was okay. Here we go. Displayed openly, an expedition of 1800 artifacts announced formally that Russia worships Black Jesus. Come on, somebody, fact check that one. Uh, it, so all UAPs interdimensional. The statement was that they are interdimensional. That's it. No context. I don't even know what interdimensional means. That they're like have five physical dimensions, or we have one time dimension, they have four time dimensions. I have no idea. Or they're from parallel universes. That could be this interdimensional thing is not well defined. Are they from other universes that have different laws of physics, and then their physics reacts different? I don't know. I could come up with half a bunch of different explanations of what interdimensional means. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just putting this up there. Yeah. I mean, if you're enjoying, if what I said in the first part is helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. It really does help this channel grow. And I've been busting my you know what for about 3 years, and it's very hard to grow, and I don't know why. It might be because I cover such a broad variety of topics. It's hard for YouTube's algorithm to classify it. It could be other things. I don't want to speculate, but there are other people who've started far sooner than I have and are three times or four times the size of my channel. I think are low quality, but I'm not going to say who those people are or anything like that. I'm not, no shade, good for them. If they have to work a tenth as hard as me to get four times, then they're doing something better than I am. They've figured it out, but good for them. But it's frustrating for me. So if you can like, share, and subscribe, I really appreciate that. You guys are claiming a lot more information than I don't know. Let's see. Oh man, Andy, I think you're going to be fine. Um, if there's one thing about, as long as like there isn't some constitutional crisis between now and when the next president gets in, I think you're going to be just fine. And the reason I think you're going to be just fine is that I think if Harris had won, I think the Chinese would have rolled the dice in 2025. I really do believe that because they're supposed to be ready. That's I can't remember if it's 2025 or by 2020 or 2030, but I think they'd roll the dice in that case. With Trump, the issue with Trump is not that he has a superior national security strategy. It's actually probably going to be even more disjointed than the current one. It just won't be as pro-war. And I think he's also mercurial enough that with the Democratic Party or the traditional Republican establishment, there are very clear precedents for how the U.S. responds to provocations and threats. Trump is a whole different ball game. Like, it would be very easy to miscalculate with him because he's a wild man, and that being a wild man is not a great national security strategy. But I think it would be enough for a conservative kind of totalitarian regime like China to think twice before doing anything crazy. Because even I could predict what the Biden administration would do or a Harris administration would do with pretty high certainty. Trump, I have no idea. I have no idea what he would do. So, and I think that's the calculus, and I think that's why um, you won't see a Taiwan invasion in 2025. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. I should do something like that, Rob, where I boil down where I currently am. Um, but again, I'm still processing. Oh man, yeah, I got a story about Pamela Anderson, like from a friend of a friend, but I'm not going to go there. It, it's weird. These people are Hollywood weird. Let's see. Oh my God. Yeah, I know Rob. I was on his show before. Yikes. Yeah, that's scary. That stuff always scares me. He's a good dude. Yeah. Oh, what do I think of Joe Rogan? I like Joe Rogan. I think he's great. I think he saved democracy. Like full stop. I think he's like him and Musk saved free speech. If if they had not existed, we would be in a different world when it comes to like our ability to interact with the world and even know what's going on outside our immediate vicinity. Right. So yeah, I don't agree with everything that he says, but I think he's definitely a force for good. Uh they could. I don't think they would. Right? You don't just give that stuff out. And so the question is, do you think Russia could transfer this new missile technology they just demonstrated to Iran and North Korea? I mean, some of it, but not all of it. Because if they transfer it there, there's a much higher probability that we find out we get it because we pack into it, or the more that they release this stuff, the greater the probability that it gets to us in some way through covert or clandestine activity. Interesting. Yeah, the Tartars are an interesting group. I think they're like somehow related to Genghis Khan, way back when. Yeah, again, I mentioned at the very beginning there was a report these South African Air Force officers claim that they see UAPs on radar, and there's an American signature, a Russian signature, and a non-human signature. So, and they can distinguish based on radar traces the difference. I don't know if that, I mean, it's an apocryphal story. An anecdote. I can't prove it, but uh, who knows? Let's see. Yeah, send me the FBI memo. You keep. I think I've probably seen it before, but please do send it to me. I should have that like readily available. And if I haven't seen it, it would still be helpful. So yes, mansplain it to me. That'd be fine. Yes, that's true. Lasers can be reflected. They can also be diffused, right? Like they're attenuated. The longer the range, you know you're gonna lose the power as the distance grows. Yeah, it could be. It could be a multitude of strange realities are going on. Um, oh my God, there's so many comments, guys. I appreciate you. Woo. Yes, everyone hit the like button and share and subscribe. Uh, let me see. Let's see how that's more than normal. Not a lot, but uh, thanks you for folks who have subscribed. I appreciate all of you. Um, all right, this is probably more popular on Twitter tonight. I'm guessing than it is on YouTube. Let's see. Yep, unquestionably more popular on Twitter tonight, which is on brand for YouTube, right? Because they just don't show it to anybody. So par for the course. All right, so yeah, thank you for asking me for my assessment on Jay Sands. He seems like a good guy. Uh, let's see, who in the ufology field that you've spoken with gets the best information to move the needle forward toward disclosure truth? Um, Probably Stephen Mira. And one of the reasons I say that is he's not better better known, and I think there's a systematic reason for that. The closer you are to the truth, the less likely you will. Yeah, yeah. I think it's likely that whatever these things are, they're from here, or they're coming from convergent realities or alternate realities, parallel realities that are coterminous with Earth. I think that's the most likely. Yeah, you keep sending me all those showgirl pictures. You're gonna get me in trouble with my wife. Like because I'm not gonna go there. But when you first look at them, you're like, what? And they're like, oh, like it's covered, but not really. Let's see. Okay, so Solite US expats writing, there have been a few psychics and one or two remote viewers that saw China breaking up into smaller countries in the future. I believe someone saw Xi with health issues and I think being removed. Look, it's possible. I mean, they have an aging demographic. They also have the problem of bare branches, which means that their male to female ratios are too high to be sustainable, and that tends to be a source of instability, right, in any culture. China's managed it better than most, but couple that with um, kind of a real estate or commercial real estate. I don't know if it's commercial real estate or just real estate bubble in general, but China's got some problems. So we'll see. Okay. Tim Mothman, welcome. Well, yeah, but the thing is, Rogan extended the same invitation to Harris, and she didn't take it, or she tried to heavily constrain it. So he was at least fair. Oh, well, yeah, yeah, maybe. I also think because there were a bunch of lawyers on the Republican side scrutinizing all the votes, I think that helped deter other things. Let's see. Yeah, that's true. They were heavily tied to us in China, I think. Yeah, she gets me into trouble, probably. Oh, what's this? Dr. Raymond Moody to talk about I have not, but I should add him to the list because I still haven't had a near-death experience or kind of episode. Yeah, I know a lot of you think I'm shadow banned. I don't know if that's how it works. I wouldn't be surprised, but I also don't want to indulge in conspiracy theories that I have no evidence either. Well, I do have some. The impressions data is not consistent with views or any of the other data because it doesn't follow a power law distribution. Everything else does, but impressions don't. So there's something fishy about that, but I don't know if that's similar to what other channels have. I would need to be able to look at somebody else's channel to see how impressions are distributed along a distribution. Because generally, on a channel like this, in any endeavor, whether it's who owns 80% of the land, the top 20% Pareto distribution, or which movies, your top 5% of movies earn 60% of the box office, top 5% of investments in venture earn 60% of the returns, right? All my videos exhibit that for almost every metric except for impressions. Guess which metric YouTube controls? Impressions. So take that for what it is. Let's see. Yeah, I've seen that video. The guy looks like an alien. I mean, that just might just be a video artifact. Yeah, it could be. It could be yes, it's all true, right? It could be yes or it could all be a simulation. And you could see whatever your mind, if it's strong enough, comes up with, or whatever your consciousness comes up with. Yeah, I think there's vibration, frequency, and energy, right? Yeah, stuff grows slow. Mechanical elves. Who should I talk to on Skinwalkers? I've had Colum Kelleher on before, but is there anybody else that you think would be good? By the way, I didn't even mention this. Earlier today, I interviewed Travis Taylor. Not for my channel though, just for something else, for my publisher. Right. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I didn't ask him about my radio show and stuff like that because it wouldn't. I was acting on behalf of uh, another party. I didn't want to go there. But anyway, I wasn't expecting to be on it. It was him and his co-author, who I've interviewed here before, Les Johnson, but I didn't expect Travis to show up, and he showed up first. I'm like, what happened? What's going on here? So anyway, that's on Bain. It'll be on Bain's website or YouTube channel, I think, at some point. But it's just about a book that he has out. It's got nothing to do with this stuff. Let's see. I said Google won't let any of my customers give me a review, and that keeps people from being able to Google my service. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Okay, the Black Madonna is the ancient symbolism for the first creation of the universe. The Divine Mother is made all black. Yeah. The mainframe. Huh. The mainframe is just a very large computer. Huh. William Nighthawk. I will look into that. That could be interesting. Wow. Lynn Monet. All right. Can look into these folks. Okay, I think I am all caught up. How we doing? So I got like 20 minutes left. So what do people want to talk about? If people want to ask me questions about the Sol Symposium, the Sol Foundation Symposium, please feel free. Oh, the mainframe is the simulation or simulacrum. I'm assuming simulation. I mean, if it is a simulation, I don't think it's as simple as like a computer simulation. I think it's just nested uh, layers of reality. Oh yeah, simulacrum. Who knows? Who knows? Howdy Mikowski. What does Howdy Mikowski do? What's his claim to fame? Mm, yeah, nested realities. That's what the ancients said too, right? The ancient Egyptians, there's like 9 subtle bodies or something like that. There's a lot of. I actually, for my birthday, my very generous employer actually gave me a $150 Barnes and Noble gift card, which I immediately spent on a giant pile of books that I will probably never get through. But I have a lot of stuff going in. I have like a bunch. Like I think one of them is one of the Men in Black books by Nick Redfern, which I think I'm kind of looking forward to reading. Let's see. Oh, Claude Monet, as in the painter. Interesting. Vedic text, like 70 plus layers of reality. Good lord. It's just more complexity and more complexity. I just wish there was more. The theme of this symposium was all about data, like more data, more data. But I think we're operating in a reality that's it's not necessarily easy to come by on everything like that. So, and again, a lot of us can just do experiments ourselves to kind of figure it out. Anyway, yeah, I think my roommate for this conference has a head cold or something, so could be COVID. I don't know. I'll be fine. I would have been better if I hadn't gotten 2 of those things. I think because my immune system was fine before it. So yeah, could be. Let's see. Um, yeah, you gotta be careful with that though, because it's very similar to like summoning ritual, sort of seance like thing, only in a modern context. So to kind of reiterate what Semivan has said, you have to be very careful what you're doing, because you could be inviting in the wrong entities. Yeah. Yeah. Lisa. Yeah, I'm not endorsing CE5, right? You have to make your own individual decision on whether or not you want to do it. Um, I've tried it maybe 3 times. I really didn't get many effects. The third time I tried it was actually on the border of just north of Skinwalker Ranch, and all that happened was the wind blew a chair at me into the fire uh, while I was sleeping. So there's that. But that could have just been it was a windy night and there was a chair across from me. Oh yeah, the Estes method. Yeah. Oh no, I haven't. Uh, though he did give me the contact information for somebody else, so I reached out to that somebody else, but they haven't responded yet. So, so no questions on the Soul Symposium. See, the other trick I do though is if to ask me a question, you have to subscribe. So sorry, you can't just come on and start talking, right? Because I can't. I want to have some quality control. So it definitely helps me limit. Yeah, just putting that out there. Yeah, yeah. I actually have an episode on the gin coming up beginning of the year, beginning of next year. So season 4, it might be the first episode. What did I get the most of? A sense of where what quote unquote elites are thinking about this topic and where it's going. And they're definitely pushing toward more disclosure. I think it's too slow, but and there's certain topics that are being avoided right now. Like, do we have treaties with them and things like that? But we're moving in that direction. And just seeing people that I've met or interviewed in the past in person, I thought that was useful. Let's see. If I had a real UFO vehicle, how much money could I make off? Nothing. Nothing. Because there would be no way for me to prove it. Right? I mean, I would probably make, depends on how realistic it looked, but let's put it at like the Turkey video where you can actually see entities moving on board and it looks really super realistic. I probably make over time 5 grand, right? And that would assume double my what like most watched video of all time. That would assume like 300,000 lifetime views, right? If it went to 3 million lifetime views, then you're talking maybe 25K. That would be worth it, right? But something like that, I imagine, would be shadow banned because that definitely has happened to select videos for people. I know it's happened to Danny Jones, almost certainly with his Chris Bledsoe video, because he had like a YouTube representative who talked to him, and like yes, at the exec level, they made a decision to limit viewer limit where it was pushed. So the intelligence community definitely reached out. It was because, and I think it was related to something that Bledsoe had said about Tim Taylor, right? So it had like national security implications. So be that as it may. Yeah, yeah, there's good stuff at the beginning. Yeah, it's pretty creepy stuff. Oh, so it's Peter Scoffish, Gary Nolan started this foundation that is designed to take a very serious look at UAP and study it with data, and not take a particular position on it, or just kind of a neutral position. And what it's meant essentially to do is bring a lot of the world's best minds on to look at this problem and to destigmatize it by not making it such a spectacle. I probably didn't do, you know, it's probably an inarticulate way of putting it, but that's kind of the gist of it. So it's a very high quality organization that looks at this problem in a very serious academic way. Interesting. I mean, they might have the technology, they might not. I don't know. Derek Davis says that they haven't figured it out. He said they've like made a lot of progress in the material science, but everything else is kind of yeah, I agree, Lisa. So Lisa is saying CE5, what you connect with can mirror back to you anything in your consciousness you think. Whatever you are contacting is far more clever than you are and has a great advantage over you. But yeah, this is the John Keel, the phenomena is reflective sort of piece. Let's see. Okay, so Woo Riders DG's writes, I heard a new update on the Miami Mail Mall alien incident. Allegedly, Navy sailors were seen coming out of the portal and rallying up the entities and going back in the portal. Who knows, man? I can't even. I don't have any data evidence. I don't know what. Yeah, Congress knows a lot more than their public is saying. That's 100. Like that was 100% clear. Like they've spoken to firsthand witnesses. They know this stuff is real. There's no doubt, right? It's real. It's just where's it from? What agreements do we have? I suspect there are more answers on that, but they haven't been forthcoming yet. Oh, Solid, I interviewed Michael Schratt. See that's YouTube for you again. I have like two interviews with him. Just look him up. There's a whole playlist on him. It's just YouTube just doesn't. YouTube does what YouTube does. Yeah, she's something. She's definitely something. All right, what other? Yeah, it's definitely there. But there's two episodes with him. There's one on the Blue Berets, and then there's the one before that, and he just systematically goes through all these crash retrievals. It's really interesting. It's based on Leo Stringfield's stuff. Yeah, interesting. Yep. But again, as I mentioned at the Sol Foundation Symposium, according to Dr. Eric Davis, the president has plenary powers and doesn't have to disclose anything. The executive branch doesn't have to disclose anything that's classified to Congress if he doesn't want to. Yes, I am the only one in my family that I am aware of who studied the overall phenomena. Nobody else. Now, in my wife's family, her grandmother and grandfather, her grandmother worked for the OSS, I think reported to Wild Bill Donovan, who, for people who know about the OSS, know all about him. But I think she was an analyst in Washington, D.C., became an Argentina expert, which her father was in the, her grandfather was in the army. This is on her mother's side. And he was involved in the precursor to Operation Paperclip when they were working with the Brits. So they would do things like get to the Berlin patent office and retrieve the patents before the Russians did, stuff like that. So the fact that she was an Argentina expert and he was in army intelligence, rounding up German scientists and technical papers and whatnot is kind of interesting. Just as we all know, a lot of these scientists settled in Argentina. So it could all be random coincidence. But my mother-in-law didn't know what her father did until long after his death when she stumbled on his military record. He never talked about it, never said one word about it. The same thing with their mother, or with her mother. They didn't know she was in the OSS until she got a like alumni association thing from the CIA sent to her house. And they're like, "What's this?" So they both kept that stuff super super tight, even to their deaths. And then I think the last place they lived when they were married was in Sedona, Arizona. And there's just a lot of weird stuff. Yeah. I mean, in the coming days and weeks, they address that. Dr. Gary Nolan and Peter Scoffish talked about different work streams that they may organize. So we'll see. Um, I don't know. There's so much noise in this topic. It's hard to tell. Huh. Yeah, I don't think CIA are private contractors. I mean, they're government employees. Oh, I don't know. Uh, I mean, you had to do what you had to do. The Russians were going to let it. We're going to have them work. So interesting. Yeah, you should do the short survey, Grail. Yeah, if I can. Yeah, I could. Yeah, I could. I can do surveys. I don't know how. I mean, they're not going to be scientifically robust, right? But you know, there is a function where I can run various things. So, all right, I have about 2 minutes left. So, anything? Any other final questions on the Sol Foundation Symposium? And also, if you want to make any super thanks or super stickers, I haven't seen any of those in a while. So just throwing it out there. I'm not going to push it because I'd rather have people subscribe on Patreon because at least they get something. But just throwing it out there. I appreciate that, Woo Riders DG. Thank you. I hope it was helpful for everybody, even including people who are tuning in for the first time. All right. Going once. I appreciate that, Mistral. Yeah, Gray House is a subscriber. He recently became a subscriber. So you can also be a member if you want the convenience. But I prefer Patreon because Patreon, it provides me with emails. So if something happens on Patreon, I'll still be able to set up a server somewhere where I can have a website and show videos and stuff like that. With YouTube, they don't share your emails. So if YouTube cancels me for any reason, I'm just severed. I appreciate that, Mistral. Thanks for coming again. I've seen you before, so I appreciate every time you come back. All right, everyone. You have a great week, and if you're American, enjoy your turkey and Thanksgiving. And I'm looking forward to. I hope everybody is is able to enjoy the upcoming holidays. You'll see me. You used to be once a week anyway. You'll see me Thanksgiving weekend and all that good stuff because I do this every week, uh, no matter what. So, and then there'll be one more live stream on the channel, uh, for December. So, anyway, thank you all and good night. God bless and take care of yourselves.